Hello there. So I'm back again with another one of these longer form videos. I think I want to keep these longer ones to be more about more self-improvement side of martial arts as opposed to the shorter videos, which be more about random topics or ideas or just easy how-tos. They're you can break things up into a small chunk easier. But for these ones, I want to go into a little bit more depth on the more like how to utilize elements of martial arts to sort of help affect the rest, all other aspects of your sort of life, I suppose. Um, so today I'm going to go on about a sort of philosophical element, the sort of like Eastern philosophy that's commonly linked with, martial arts and philosophy are often heavily interlinked. And the longer you do martial arts for you, the more you kind of understand why that is. And this is a principle called Kaizen. It's Japanese. It essentially just means being in a state of like continuous improvement, one step at a time. So the idea is it's kind of basically like a growth mindset, if you've ever heard that before. It's essentially you're trying to always get better constantly, but you're not trying to like go from 0 to 0 instantly. You just start chipping away. That's the most realistic way to get good at something. That's why it takes such a long time to get actually seriously good at anything, because you have to understand the fact that it takes small steps at a time. That whole like 1% better each day kind of. That's basically what Kaizen is. So you can apply this to obviously in martial arts, but you can apply it to basically anything. It's a life philosophy. You can apply it to basically any aspect of your life, whether it's hobbies, career, lifestyle, relationships, all these sort of things you can apply it to. There's like old stories you might hear, like with the guy general would train his troops by like they'd have a hole and they're jumping in and out of the hole, and each day make it slightly deeper until they're like jumping. Eventually, over time, they end up jumping out of massive holes. So the leg strength is much higher. Or you start training with like tiny pebbles, and each day it gets slightly bigger, till eventually you're working with boulders. It's that kind of idea. So it's a really big kind of self-improvement mindset that you have to have continuously getting better. And like I say, you can apply it to basically anything that you want to get better at. Any aspect of your life. It doesn't have to be martial arts. It's kind of it comes out of that, through Eastern philosophy and martial arts historically, but it's something that you can easily use on everything. So good examples. I've got some like random notes here. That's why I'm looking over here. Like how you can actually adapt this and apply it to your life. How do you continuously get better? One is to have that mindset of, in the first place, being aware that you're not good enough in your current state, not in like a negative way, but there's still a lot more room for growth. You could still be a lot better, and that there's no reason why you shouldn't want to try and aim to be better if you can be. So so that's examples of how you can actually improve yourself over the long periods of time. Things like studying, reading about, gaining new information or knowledge about whatever it is you want to do. Like I say, whether it's hobbies or career related or anything, so reading, there's an old phrase which is leaders are readers. It's it's an essential skill essentially. When I say like reading, it just means gaining new knowledge. It doesn't have to be just reading books. It can be like informational videos or audiobooks. I use audiobooks a lot because they're great for when you're like driving and stuff. if you struggle to like make time to physically like read a book. And then there's fitness training, whatever form. There's loads of different forms, whether it be running, cycling, swimming, and then there's weight training, yoga, martial art practice is a form of exercise. There's loads of different ways, as long as you're doing something. That sort of like standard half an hour, 30 minutes of activity a day. There's like the sort of minimum, and that's something you can constantly build up. Progressive overload, continuously get better. You can become faster, more endurance, stronger, all those different things. That's another element you can apply the same principle to. So you're either continuously growing your knowledge, your mind, or your body through that. Gaining new skills, like learning something completely new altogether, kind of relates to reading, rather than like trying to build on something you already know. You can try and learn something completely new that might be very useful and help you sort of level up in whatever area it is you're trying to work on. And then you can also look at applying the principle of Kaizen through analyzing your habits and trying to develop more good habits rather than bad ones. So good habits are some of the things I've already listed. These activities that help increase your ability or your worth is like a what you can provide to other people, or essentially. So good habits, exercise, going to bed on time, getting good sleep, reading, or like just gaining new knowledge and skills. Things like meditation, that's a good habit for you, especially if you struggle with some kind of mental health issue. It can really help with that. Or just even if you don't, it's really good for like helping you kind of increase your ability to focus. There's a lot of benefits to it, really, but that's another example of like a good positive habit. And as opposed to that, you've also got analyzing your habits so that you can see what bad habits you have and try and, you can't really eradicate a habit, because if you try and like blank it out, it'll kind of come back in some other form. You have to sort of replace it with something else. So ideally what you should do is look at what you tend to do, like honestly have like a sort of open, honest look at what you actually tend to do throughout your day, what your habits are, good and bad, and then see which bad ones you can sort of try to replace with good ones, like that. An example of how you can't just like completely get rid of a habit is, for years and years, I always had a like nail biting habit where I just all the time, for like as long as I can remember, I had this habit for ages. Eventually I figured out the best way to get rid of it would actually just I was constantly cutting my nails really like low so that there's nothing to bite, because when you over a nail biter, you just kind of go until there's nothing to actually get anymore, essentially. So I'd just manually do that to myself with like nail cutters, and then it's not there, you can't physically do it anymore. So that kind of helped me to sort of get rid of that. But the habit still actually exists, just in another form, because now I've noticed throughout the past like year or so since I managed to stop it, I've sort of developed a new habit of like biting the inside of my cheek instead, and it's really annoying. I'm trying to figure out how to like catch myself out doing it and try and stop myself. But that's an example of how you can't just like get rid of one, because it will kind of resurface in a different form. So you have to kind of replace it with something else. And that's essentially that's a rough rundown of the principle of Kaizen. Continuous improvement, one step at a time. So just continually trying to make little things better. Don't try and do everything at once. I've suggested a lot of things that you can do to like help improve you and build up yourself as an individual. And think about that principle of Kaizen. Don't just try and do everything at once. Do little bits at a time. Like when I first started doing personal fitness training for myself, or like having a morning routine, I should say, because I sort of did bits before, but like having an actual proper routine, like especially in the morning, what I did, I deliberately didn't try to do too much at once, because I thought it might not work out. So I deliberately just started just with like going for a run in the morning, just doing that. And then after like 2 or 4 weeks of that, I started like doing a bunch of pull-ups at the end of it. And then after about 2 weeks of that, I did something else, and that's how I first started trying to build it up. And you have to look. It's kind of tough, especially if you're impatient. But you have to have a bit of patience with things and kind of trust the process, trust the fact that through building slowly, you're actually going to get, over time, it will just be a bigger result because it applies that consistency. If you try and go too fast, it just cuts off, and you end up losing. You burn out, or you have a rough time, or you just can't physically get it all in, and then your expectations of versus reality are all messed up. So yeah, that's the principle of Kaizen. Hope you've found something useful in this video, and I will see you in the next one.